All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thanks for coming. Straight after lunch, so I'm sure there'll be some nodding off, but I'll do my best to keep everyone engaged and in the room. Just to highlight as well that in terms of the material, I know it talks about the blurb that you saw talks about how you can pitch to publishers. Just wanted to say there's also content in there about what's important from the point of view of your relationship with a publisher and what you should be thinking about from the point of view of the value that a publisher can bring to you. Because one thing to bear in mind in terms of finding a publisher, going on that journey, it needs to be an equitable relationship. So that's a really important point, and we'll talk about that as we kind of move through the deck. So loads of people have put this deck together. I'm just standing up here to present it in the best traditions of taking credit for other people's work. So Liz, who's sitting at the front here, has just published half a dozen indie titles along with Mads from our team based in Sydney. So a lot of this material, a lot of the context that you can view this material through is of very recent indie title publishing. And hopefully that will kind of resonate with everyone from the point of view of the stuff that I want to share with you. And one of those games, by the way, was Bez in Space. So that's nominated tonight, so go Bez in Space. Look, choosing a publisher is a crucial decision for any studio, for any developer. It can offer an opportunity to reach a wider audience, it can generate more revenue, and it can grow your studio, but only if that's what you want to do. And we'll talk about that as well. We'll talk about why it's important to think about what it is that you want from potentially from a relationship with a publisher. The other thing I wanted to highlight is this is one publisher's perspective. There are a lot of publishers out there. We're not the only one. There are plenty. Hard to believe, I know, but there are plenty. And you might like what somebody else says way more than you like what I say. And that's really important to bear in mind. What you hear from me might not resonate with you. So it may be important for you to, there's definitely a case to be made for having a number of conversations and not going with the first opportunity. You may agree with everything that I say today, and that would be ideal. However, you might agree with only some of it, and you might agree with none of it, and that's okay. I mean, as I said before, there are numerous publishers out there, and there are different perspectives, and you know, I think it's, you know, many people will tell you that I'm always wrong, and you know, that's something that you should bear in mind too. You need to be out there talking to more than one publisher. So all that said, my goal today is to get you thinking and to get you started on that journey if you haven't started it already. Potentially to reassure you if you're already on the journey and thinking about things, to give you a sense that you're probably looking at the right factors, or at least the right factors from our perspective as a publisher, because there's plenty of other views out there, as I said. Or, you know, you might get to the end of the 50 minutes and just join the ranks of people that already know that I'm wrong, and that's okay too. So, all that said, why? So why would you want to be in a relationship with a publisher? And I think, you know, there's a number of factors. It might be about, thank you. It might be about a move from self-publishing to open new geographies or new platforms. It might be about a move from, you know, from PC to console. It could be about funding. You know, spending other people's money is always fun, right? But typically it comes, unfortunately, with some expectations on the part of the person whose money you're spending. always worth bearing in mind. You know, is it about bigger? Is it about better? Is it about more? Show of hands, so who is looking for a publisher right now? Who's thinking about a publisher in the future? Yeah, so I think, you know, I think every studio goes on this journey at some point or another, where it's about taking that next step potentially, it's about growing, it's about, you know, potentially realizing that next creative vision. And finding the right publisher can really help with that. But before you move into that space, it's important to understand the why for you as a business, as a team, and really to understand what's important. So depending on the structure of your business, if you want to work with a publisher, then, you know, it might be the leadership team that's making that decision. It might be co-founders. It might be investors that need to answer that question. You know, why do we want to be with a publisher? Is it the right thing for us to do? If you have a bigger team, it's also important that you make sure that you take them on the journey with you if you decide that moving to work with a publisher is the right place to be. You've got to sell the team the dream if you decide you're going to go down that road. And I think it's also important to bear in mind that there are some people that will only want to work on certain kinds of projects. And if you do jump into a different space with a publisher and you decide that you're going to take that next step, you might lose some of those people. I think important to think, though, that conversely, there might be some new team members that might join you with a different expectation. But important to think about your team and bringing them with you on the journey as you think about whether or not it's the right step for you. So, why work with a publisher? So to give you a bit of a sense, and again, this is to provide a little bit of balance and some equity to the discussion today, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. I want to make sure that if there's questions, we can take those. You know, a publisher can support developers and studios with investment and resources, and often they can open some roads that are not available to local studio teams when they're less well-resourced and less well-funded. Partnering with a publisher, for example, can help in terms of release management, i.e. the process of getting a product to market. It can help, you know, a publisher can help with QA. A lot of publishers have internal in-house QA teams that can work with studios to help them to bring product forward to be at a point that perhaps it's ready for a broader publishing base. You know, if you take a more commercial approach, let's say, to publishing rather than a soft release with community, often critics can be a bit harsher, and it's important to make sure that product can, you know, stand on its own at day one, rather than necessarily being something that you take community feedback on and evolve the product over time. Localization is also a opportunity for publishers to bring value to bear with development studios. Many publishers have in-house localization, or at least teams that manage localization with external vendors. If you're thinking about expanding geographies, if you're thinking about, you know, markets like Japan, Korea, China, for example, those are things that a publisher can bring a lot of value to from the point of view of that localization. In terms of then marketing and communications, you know, I think important that we remember that discovery is one of the key challenges that we're going to have as an industry moving forward. You know, if you think about platform holders continuing to acquire studios and to focus on their subscription offerings, one of the things that will be challenging for all of us is really enabling discovery, allowing gamers to find our amazing products. And that's certainly something that a publisher with marketing and communications expertise, whether that's with PR, social, community management, or content creator relationships. That's something that publishers can help with. And I think we'll need to. If you think about the number of Steam releases a week, if you think about machine learning and AI from the point of view of the way in which PSN or Xbox delivers your homepage, trying to find new content, trying to find different content, I think is going to be a challenge as we move forward. And I think publishers can help with that. And then customer service on the back end, with a higher price point, with more, investment in a title, with a say a premium price point release, there's an expectation then of customer service that's commensurate with that. And many publishers can help with teams from the point of view of customer service. Look, ultimately, when you think about partnering with a publisher, the objective should be to offer the studio more time to spend on the development of the game, more energy to focus on the development of the game and to deliver the best product. So I'm going to just jump through the build here because I see some people taking photos and I want to make it easy for them. So why work with the publisher? Look, developers are the experts in terms of the realization of their creative vision, right? Most developers have a very keen sense of what it is they want to deliver to players. And, sometimes, they can, that creative vision can burn very brightly. What publishers bring to the table and what value they can bring to that relationship is that they're experts in those 6 things that are up on the screen right now. They might not know how to code a game, but they know how and to whom to sell that game. So expertise in markets, territory teams, experienced people that really know the market and players and consumers in that market, whether it's the US, or the Americas, whether it's Europe, whether it's Asia. These are sometimes regions that we don't know enough about when we're based here. And if you've got a publisher with that global footprint, that can really help. Commercial understanding is also a key aspect of the relationship with a publisher. SKU strategy, what SKUs should be there? When should they pre-order? What the strategy should be if you have a collector's edition, it pre-orders out. What the audience opportunity is, what the sales potential is. Publishers, if you're early in the process, can help with this. That can help shape then budget. It can help shape spend because, it's not commercially viable to spend 100 million on a game that only 6 people want to play, right? And publishers can help to give can help to give dimension to what that commercial opportunity is for you as studios. The other thing that publishers offer is a bit of a vision for what success looks like, how to develop the brand, how to develop the marketing, what the communication opportunities are, and also the best way to position the game. Developers are also good at partnerships because they like to get stuff for nothing. Bear that in mind when you do your deals with them. It might be, they have extensive relationships. It might be a deal with a pizza company, but it might be a deal with a first party, with a platform holder. Those kind of relationships may be relationships that you don't have or that you don't have time to build. So also worth bearing in mind. And then the last piece is really about the kind of analytical tools, data-backed strategies, monitoring, performance analysis, social listening. So those things that perhaps you're doing on a smaller scale with titles that you might have self-published, but if you wanted to take that next step into publishing, you may not have the resource in-house to handle that kind of stuff. I think, a key point from a recent title that we published as well, something to think about is also, when you come out of self-publishing, particularly on PC and on Steam, and you move into console, one thing to bear in mind is that physical product remains a very viable opportunity for developers as they release, particularly in markets like Japan with Switch and PS5, for example. And it's also an opportunity. We love to collect, right? Gamers love to manifest their love for a particular game by having shelves full of stuff that show they love games, right? When you talk about collector's editions, for example, a lot of publishers have experience in delivering those kind of value-add premium SKUs. And even if you talk about a Switch version with a code in a box, it may not need to be a physical car, it may not need to be a disc, it could be a code in the box. But one thing is driving that visibility and that awareness in markets like Japan, for example, is something that publishers can help you with. I think it's a somewhat underestimated opportunity. So help yourselves to stand out. Now we'll flip to what you need to do versus what publishers can bring to the table and what you should be thinking about. So establish yourself or your studio in the industry. Come to GCAP, network, meet people, spend time talking, build your profile as a studio and get your name out there so that when you walk into the room earlier, I know the name of your studio, I've seen the studio out there, it's something that's on my radar. That's your job, not ours. And I know most of you are highly engaged and committed to that process. Really important. Build a social presence across both professional, so LinkedIn and all that palaver, but also from the point of view of community channels and spend time on that. It's a way of discovering you. It's a way for publishers to, type something into Google and see you very, very quickly. So worth investing time in. Show professionalism. Turn up for meetings on time. Behave appropriately. I don't need to say this stuff to you, but you would be surprised at the number of times we, as publishers, see behaviour that's contrary to that. Being creative is great. Being focused on delivering a great outcome for players and for making the best game is awesome, but at the same time has to come with some structure and a professional approach. And I know that I don't need to tell anyone in that room that message because you're all here, right? Prepare your pitch, and we'll talk about that in a second, but prepare your pitch, and if possible, if you've got a vertical slice, if you've got a playable build, that's ideal. Publishers love that. They hate game design documents and pitch documents that don't come with those things, unless they're really special. Attend industry events. We already talked about GCAP, but also GDC. If you can afford to go to San Francisco, the world's most expensive city, or at least it feels that way at that point in the year, or Gamescom, then that's I think can be time well spent. If you want to go to Gamescom, often the Australian industry through IGEA will partner with one of the state governments and they'll put together the Australia booth. Maybe worth thinking about whether or not you can get your game onto that booth and get it showcased in Cologne. And then lastly, network. And I don't mean that from a latency perspective, clearly. I mean it from the point of view of guys getting out there, drinking coffees and whatever else and talking to everyone. So how to nail your pitch. What's your game? This is about your elevator pitch. How do you tell somebody about your game, somebody like me with very low boredom threshold and seeing a lot of games? How do you know your elevator pitch? How do you talk in 90 seconds or 2 minutes about your game and why it's different? So what's the game? What's the USP? What's the value proposition? What's your studio experience? I'll put the whole slide up and you can kind of grab the image of that again. But it's really about, from a game point of view, core gameplay. What's the genre? What are the affinity titles? What is it like? What is it like? And hopefully, what's it like that's been successful? And then is it single player and multiplayer? Is it couch co-op? Is it online multiplayer? Those things are important for publishers to understand. So the USP, what makes it special? What are the key features? Why will a player want to play it? What makes it different? What makes it engaging? So the value proposition, is it a live service game? And then if it's not, estimated hours of gameplay. And on the back of that, thinking about, what are your plans for DLC? Is it PC day one and then console port? Is it, those kind of things are the things that publishers are interested in. And then lastly, studio experience. Why is your team the right team to make the game? And always helpful to hear about previous titles that the team has worked on or experience that the team has from the point of view of franchises or work that's been done. So, supporting information around how to nail the pitch. Let me throw it all up so it makes it easy. Visual appeal. So character appeal, lighting effects, animation, and variety. So innovation, what's innovative about your game? Technical innovation, gameplay mechanics, the theme or the narrative is it based in, Korean mythology, and we haven't seen a Korean game yet, we haven't seen anything that really, apart from PUBG, what is it that you bring to the table that is different? What personalization opportunities are there for players? And are there, and this is important for people in branded t-shirts, what licensing and IP opportunities are there? Because publishers really, really enjoy it when you say to them that there are opportunities here to take the IP and to broaden it outside of gameplay, because players will want to manifest their love for the game by wearing a t-shirt, by buying a collector's edition, by buying a statue. So important to think of those things. In terms of gameplay features, the reward system, modes of play, audio, exclusive content, what the plan is from the point of view of exclusive content is always really interesting for publishers. Game dynamics, physics AI, environmental interaction, destructible environments, whatever it happens to be, object interaction, avatar evolution, camera behavior, all the things that I'm just reading that sentence. You know exactly what all that means, clearly. And then control, configuration, interface, heads up, peripherals, etc., particularly if you're thinking about console. Couple more bits on nailing your pitch. So, game structure, tutorials, training, accessibility, level design, replay appeal, longevity, what the save system is, multiplayer, what native modes are in place, external, cross-platform is really interesting for publishers, clearly. Network features, social features, commerce, downloadable content, having a plan, talking about the 12 or 24 months post-release, here's what we think we can do, here's what we think we can deliver. Talk about the studio, current team, who they are, again, experience. If you need to scale up, if you need more resource, if you sign a publisher and they give you a check for 25 million, what are you going to do to actually spend that money? How are you going to spend it in the right way? And then from the point of view of work for hire, if you need partners, who are they going to be? Who would you work with? Why would you choose to work with them? Don't forget to talk about technology, what's the engine, etc. And then the logistics of it. There needs to be a plan, game design document, and then budget, how much you're going to spend. And then we, as publishers, we always go, okay, so it's that plus 50%, and we always know. So, a couple of key thoughts before we jump in then to questions. Not every publisher is the right publisher for you. So what's important is that the publisher pitches you as much as you pitch the publisher. there needs to be, when you think about your game and you think about a publisher that you're kind of talking to about your game, you want to take a look at what genres they published previously, what platforms they've worked on, what their geographical footprint is, based on your aspirations for your game. Any references are always helpful. So if you have a good conversation with a publisher, you can say to them, hey, there's some studios you've worked with before that we might talk to that you'd be comfortable with us reaching out to, or can you put us in touch with them? Or better yet, you might have kind of relationships with people that at studios where that publisher's worked with them, and you can have a off-the-record conversation with them. What's it really like to work with X, Y, and Z? And that's, like anything else, that kind of recommendation thing is important for us. Transparency is critical. No surprises. Publishers hate surprises in the same way that you would hate surprises if publishers sprung surprises on you. So it's really important that transparency is top of mind for everyone. Hand in hand with transparency comes honesty. There is no point in being in a relationship with a publisher where you are not honest and direct. Because all that happens, you can, if I think about experiences that we've had, that I've had over the last decade and a half in terms of publishing, the difficult times always come when there is an issue that has built up over time, where there hasn't been a direct conversation, where there wasn't honesty, where there wasn't transparency, and then there's a surprise or a disappointment. That's always, it's never too late to fix stuff if you talk about it and get it out on the table. So it's really important to remember that. Hand in hand with that comes, again, then a willingness to listen. Now, listening has to go both ways. It's not just about, a publisher telling you what to do. You must do this. Far from it. It's about, hopefully, two groups of experts coming together to create something very, very special. And the way that happens is when both parties listen to each other's perspectives, and listen to them from the point of view of the expertise that they can bring to bear. Yeah, there's dynamic tension. Yes, there'll be times where there are difficult conversations, but that's okay, because that's what delivers good outcomes. That honesty, that transparency, that willingness to listen, and then figuring out the right way forward that suits everyone. So do keep that in mind. It's really, really key, I think, to have in kind of the front of your mind as you think about this stuff. Compromise. Sometimes, believe it or not, publishers can be too focused on return on investment. Don't tell my boss I said that, but... and sometimes developers can be blinded by the light of their creative vision. And that situation, it's like staring at the sun. No good can come of that. So you have to have that dynamic tension between the two parties, that ability for the publisher to say, that's not right for this game, here are the reasons why, or the developer to say, we don't like this, here are the reasons why. Got to have that honest interaction, really important. Now, something that can be really undervalued, I believe, is cultural alignment. Your organisation, as a development business, has, if you're two people, it has a culture. If it's one person, you have a culture, but you're probably not looking for a publisher if you're a single person development studio. But you have a culture, and publishers have a culture, and they're all very different. The culture at Ubisoft is really different to the culture at PlayOn, which is really different to the culture at EA, which is really different to the culture at Warner Brothers. So you have to think about culture, and you don't have to be completely aligned, but it's important that your key values and perspectives are aligned with the partner that you choose. It's really important, because if you don't do that, then that can be, again, a real problem. And coming back to transparency and honesty, that's important from the very first meeting, from the very first Skype, Zoom, Teams call, whatever it is, to a coffee or whatever it is. Setting out your expectations as a development studio and listening to what publishers are interested in and what they're thinking about is really quite important. So, process. It's really, I think, key to understand that publishers have a process, and that's why they're publishers. They're very structured. There are certain things that need to happen at certain points in a product's journey to market, and publishers, that process might be different to yours. It might be different to yours from the point of view of the way that you might normally develop a game, but it might also be different from the point of view of you taking a title to market and self-publishing. Publishers have a structured approach to timelines, and they need to do that because they potentially are managing more than one title at a time. They could be managing 4 or 5 or half a dozen. That, you can look at that as a developer, and it's always good to ask that question of a publisher: what would the competition be internally for my title if you were to publish it for me? What else are you publishing at the same time? And to think about that from the point of view of, are those titles going to cannibalize yours? Does the publisher have enough resource to manage that? Equally important to think about the fact that if the publisher has structure and weight in market and a lot of resource, then it can help with the discovery of your product too, irrespective of the number of titles they might be publishing. But again, a question that needs to be asked. Publishers might not be as agile as you are because they tend to have these structured processes that they need to follow. And part of that, of course, comes from particularly working with platform holders who have very, very structured and rigorous processes that you need to follow, particularly around console as you bring product to market. So bear that in mind. I think you need to discuss this stuff up front. Again, no surprises. Part of what an example that I'd throw out there, which is a complete exaggeration, but it would be something like, you can't get 63 revisions to a launch trailer across 3 days prior to getting it out there. You might have that opportunity as a studio to turn assets around really, really quickly, but from the point of view of a publisher, that may not be the case. So again, you need to be very, very considered up front in terms of the way that you enter a relationship. Get it in writing. So if you sign a contract with a publisher, hopefully it gets put in a drawer and never sees the light of day again. But things happen. Shit happens, right? Sometimes stuff doesn't go according to plan. So get a contract. Make sure that whoever you work with from a legal point of view knows what the hell they're doing, and that the contract is structured and is appropriate for your needs as a developer, and it covers the kind of eventualities that might transpire during the go-to-market process, the publishing process. So get, an experienced legal perspective, but make sure that you've got a good lawyer. You can talk to other studios. Obviously, you need to be mindful of any NDAs that are signed, and publishers will feel the same way about that. But, you need to get this stuff in writing. No playing fast and loose. And then, we kind of talked about it, but I wanted to kind of come back to it. Interview the publisher. Ask them questions, which you'll have the opportunity to do in a minute anyway, but ask them questions. Figure out if they're the right fit. Can I work with these people? Am I okay sending them messages on Discord at midnight to tell them that the build has failed, to tell them that, am I okay with it? Can I work with them? Think about it and think about how comfortable or otherwise you would be if you were working with the publisher. The other thing I would suggest as well, when you meet with potential publishers for products, try and meet a broader team. Don't just meet the sales guy, right? Because they will tell you whatever the hell you want to hear. Yeah, we'll get you a helicopter, no problem. Try and meet with a broader team. Meet with the people that you'll be working with day to day on your most important project. Because I think that, again, gives you more context and a better ability to make a good decision when you see that broader team rather than just one biz dev person or whoever it happens to be. Last thing, be prepared to let go just a little. You cannot have everything that you want as a developer if you get into bed with a publisher. It might be about the launch trailer music, where you think that the level deserves some EDM music, and the publisher says to you, no, we're trying to build a bigger audience than fans of EDM music. We don't think it's right for the title. Here's why. Here are some things that we've done previously. That might be in stark contrast to what you believe. But publishers won't say stuff that they don't think will allow the title to sell more and to create a broader funnel for players to discover your game. So, again, be prepared just a little to let go. It's hard, super hard when it's your project, when it's your creation, when it's so important to you as a developer. But no publisher is going to offer you advice that they think is in the worst interests of your product. They're always going to tell you what they think is best for the product and why. All right. That brings us to questions. Obviously, that was hugely comprehensive, and you've probably got no questions. Sorry, no questions. But if there's anything that anyone would like to ask.
Thank you. As a publisher, I imagine you get a lot of emails, messages from people pitching to you. I'm just curious if there's anything that you've seen stand out, or what is it that makes something stand out to you that cuts through all of that, that makes you excited to then follow up, with that developer?
When they come in the post with money. Great question. Yes, we see a lot of product pitches. And actually an increasing number. I think what's always really interesting for us is to see something that is short, succinct, and punchy, but gives us the answers to those kind of questions that I asked before. How much money? What's the engine? What's the USP? What is it's like a kind of, if you like, it's a 3 or 4 page game design document. That, and a bit of an overview of the team, does not ever need to be more than 4 or 5 pages on a PowerPoint or, in terms of bullet points on an email. So less is more. It's about, for a publisher, it's about piquing their interest. It's about getting a foot in the door and then delivering that, kind of all singing, all dancing view of your vision. But whenever it's a cold call, which is always the hardest from the point of view of a publisher, less is more. Those kind of 5 key topics: who are you? What are you making? What are you making it for? How much money do you want to spend? What is the USP? It's those 5 things that I look for. Shall I say them again? Did everyone get them? No, you all got them. Good. I think this gentleman was first. You're next.
Just kind of on the flip side of that, is there anything that a pitcher can do that kind of worries you or like makes you concerned about their game?
Yeah, where you get a lot of information, but not a lot of data or not a lot of insights coming from the studio about what's important to them and what it is they're going to deliver. If it's 5 pages about the narrative journey that the player's going to go on, and why that is different and important, that's okay, but that's for meeting 2. Where those 5, I would always hit those 5 key points that I talked about before, because they're the things that make me go, when I get those emails or if I get that elevator pitch, they're the 5 things when I can tick those boxes where I go, this person is worth meeting with, because there's a mutual opportunity here.
So with the pitch info you gave, like at the start, it was like 2 or 3 slides, and I was really surprised to see just how much you expected. I wasn't sure if that was like in the first pitch, or if you expected to be follow-ups, or especially with how you were saying to keep it succinct. It felt like there was so much to keep.
Always follow-ups. Great point. Thank you for highlighting that. So those 5 key points that I just raised are the ones that you're going to talk about at elevator pitch, coffee. If you meet somebody at GCAP, we've got a game. Can I tell you about it? Yeah, sure. Tell me about it. Those 5 things. All of that stuff comes later. All of that stuff is a second meeting or a third meeting. It's part of, you have to think about it from the point of view of you're going to go on a journey with a publisher. There is no way on earth that a publisher is going to meet you for 2 hours, have 1 meeting, and then give you an offer. So that information is all of the information you should have. It's all of the things that a publisher will think about. And if you've already prepared it, that's great. You should have. Because as I said, the question you need to ask yourself about engaging with a publisher is why. If you haven't got that information, you haven't answered that question for yourself.
So you need to be ready to answer those, but not necessarily open the door with that.
If you send it to me, I will look at it and go, oof, I cannot look at that. I need those 5 things first, and then that information, you should have that information anyway if you've been through that process and asked yourself, do I want to partner with a publisher? Is that where I'm at in my kind of journey? But thanks for that. I appreciate the clarification. Where are we? Yeah, wherever you can. I'm not sure who was next.
Is there ever a reason that you think that it would be good for a developer or studio to reach out to publishers early, before they're ready to work with a publisher? For instance, I believe that most will announce or put on their site like what they're looking for, who they're planning to work with, the types of things they want. But you were posing a lot of details where it's good to figure out like the culture of a particular publisher.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Yes. If you're at early stages and you've got a game design document, then it's worth reaching out to a publisher before you've got anything else. Because as a developer, what you want is to have the most options. So if you talk to 5 publishers about a project that you're working on where you've got, kind of early stages GDD and you're ready to kind of think about what that next step is, then yeah, by all means have that conversation. Typically, though, if you do that, you'll need to talk to somebody in BizDev from whatever publisher it happens to be. It won't be somebody like me who is involved specifically in publishing. I do some BizDev, but I'm more in that publishing space. So you definitely want to have the most options you can. So I would absolutely start early days. Because the other thing is as well, then you build those relationships and you understand how people are, what they're, the way they behave and what kind of approach they take, which can be really important for you.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Okay, well, whoever's going to wrestle the mic from you. Yeah.
Go around there.
Yeah.
Actually, this was just slightly related to the previous question, but maybe slightly more in depth. I know in a lot of cases, a lot of people and game development actually often starts engaging with their community quite early. That can be in the aspect of engaging in terms of specific marketing things like, TikTok or putting up, game development stuff on YouTube, blogging about it, that sort of stuff, as well as demos and people playing. I know in a lot of cases, publishers want to be a partner in shaping the message as it goes out into the community. But then I have also known publishers who are looking for that community engagement first in order to help them see what the public perception of the product is going to be. I suppose my question in this case is your preference to be part of that building of the public vision earlier, or are you more likely to be looking at wanting to see where that engagement is heading before
question.
your engagement?
Yeah, no, look, really good question. It depends, which is so annoying, I'm sorry. If we look at a project and we are blown away by the information that we see, the structure that the studio brings to the pitch, if we're in love with the creative vision, if we think that the narrative, the genre, the player journey, the mechanic, if we're blown away by it, we don't care so much. If we're less positive about a game and we're kind of, yeah, maybe this could be something, then at that point, any kind of additional kind of validation, if you like, coming from the community, it might be a sequel, it might be that, you've sold the game on Steam to self-published your previous game, you've got a really engaged community and they're talking about how excited they are, that can be helpful. Just really depends. And I think last question there for, this row here with the lady here.
Thank you so much for the talk. It was very informational. The question that I have is, because you've talked about research your publisher and what genre they usually publish, but then you've also said later on that internally with the publishers, they'll have to see whether or not a game that they have already published or they're keen to publish has like the same genre with the others. I guess my question is how, as the developers, balance or try to put ourselves out there for the publishers to publish our game, even though they already have a track record of the same genre?
Look, I think as a developer, you can look at a publisher who has experience in that genre. If they're experienced in that genre, then they're connected with the community, they're connected with players in that space, which can be helpful from the point of view of PR and social and kind of community management generally. If you've got a game that's in a similar genre to those games that a particular publisher is already focused on, then it comes back to the question then, what's different? What's the USP in terms of your game, and why would a publisher want to be kind of partnering with you, I think. So look, thank you all so much for coming and listening to me. I'll be around if anyone's got any other questions. If anyone wants to give me their 5-point pitch, then I'll be kind of around a bit later. But thank you so much. Really appreciate your attention.